Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth in Cyber, where we cut through the noise, skip the spin, and stop admiring the problem. This is where builders, breakers, and defenders come together to have honest conversation about what's really happening in the cybersecurity industry. No marketing hype, no fear tactics, just thoughtful discussions about the challenges we face and the opportunities to make security better. Our mission is simple: tell the truth, help people make cybersecurity better. So let's get started. So today we're talking about something the cybersecurity industry doesn't like to admit. Our leaders are burning out, and what we're doing most is nothing about it. A groundbreaking new study found that 41% of CISOs are operating at severe burnout levels, not tired, not stressed, but actively in distress. And the structural drivers aren't personal weaknesses, they're built into how the industry operates. Today we're joined by Steve Shelton, the founder of Green Shoe Consulting, who led that research. He's here with us today to talk about what the data actually says, why wellness programs miss the point, and what real mental performance looks like for people who can't afford to get it wrong. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation today. And also got to welcome Mel Kalinsky, who's joining us as well today. So thanks for being here, Mel.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And this is something, Steve, that I've personally felt in my career. I'd say all of us on this call have felt in our careers as well. And probably most of our listeners have felt this at some point. So let's just kind of start from the beginning. When you hear cybersecurity burnout, like what does that actually mean?
Good question, because part of the challenge is our industry, and much like other industries, likes to throw around some buzzwords. So burnout, being stressed out, all those things have kind of caught on, and the definition may or may not be on point. So from a research standpoint or scientific standpoint, research has three dimensions to it. So just because you're exhausted or tired doesn't mean you're burnt out, first and foremost. Physical and mental exhaustion is one of the three domains. The second one is cynicism. So having a negative response, attachment to the actual job and the environment that you work in. You no longer care about how much quality you put into the work, how much effort you put in, that type of thing. The third piece then is a feeling of professional inefficacy, feeling like nothing to you really matters. There's no purpose or meaning in the work that you're doing, etc. So you essentially, I'm a former singer-songwriter and Johnny Paycheck with take this job and shove it. That's the type of attitude you then start to take on when you're feeling those three things.
Very interesting. The more I get to know you, Steve, the more I love you, man, because I'm also a former singer-songwriter myself. It's like,
Dig it.
when I talk about my experience in burnout, I've told my story before. I've been with FR Secure now for 7 years. Before that, I worked in a lot of corporate gigs for the corporate information security team. And all those things you just described are feelings I had before I left that career and found FR Secure found me, which was a blessing. I always say that. But I remember having conversations with my wife and just saying, "Hey, I'm going to quit this. I can't handle it anymore. I'm going to play music and pick up, construction gigs on the side, and we can make it work." And she said, "I love you, honey, but you're an idiot. You're really good at what you do, and there's a company out there that's going to treat you right, and they're going to value, work-life balance and treat you with respect." So interesting. I'm happy to hear you were a singer-songwriter as well. Maybe offline we can talk about that a little bit more. But I see in your study, and this is a really interesting point, 40% of the CISOs scored a 6 to 9 on the burnout scale. And we started this study. Did you expect that? Did that surprise you?
I don't know if that specifically surprised me. I think that's heavily understated. So part of the challenge is that when we started off, the idea of asking 40 of the CISOs we interviewed on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how burnt out are you right now?
Hmm.
So we hadn't give the definition of burnout to them before that. And so part of the challenge is in this industry, we're taught not to express any mental or emotional challenges because that's seen as a weakness, right? So the idea is like from the business or whoever, it's either implied or explicitly given out. We don't really care what's going on with you and what makes it hard for you to do the job. You're getting paid. Shut up and
Hmm.
do the job,
Yep.
right? So the challenge behind that then is you get conditioned and trained not to express any of those things that are actually making it really hard for you to perform. So that self-reporting piece then becomes really challenging because of whether or not you feel safe enough to express what's really going on. So
Hmm.
we'd have a good chunk of those CISOs that participated in the research scoring between 6 to 9 themselves. But like we had one, and he was I'll say a Fortune 100 CISO, and so he was saying, "Oh yeah, I'm at a 6." Right? Like, okay, like tell me more. Why did you score yourself on that? Like, tell us more about your environment, how you do your job, what you do, blah, blah, blah. And so we'd come to uncover and realize he's like, well, I sleep 3 hours a night on a good night. I've got teams all over the globe, so I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I work until 10 or 11 at night, blah, blah, blah. And I'm on my third marriage. I have these health issues. And we're like, dude, you're a 15 out of 10. Like, that is so bad. And so it's that type of thing. Like, really, one of the biggest things we've found over the past 2 years also of running workshops, educational courses, etc., is one of the biggest benefits we provide is not only just the space to be able to talk about these things, but giving the opportunity to reflect. So when we're in an industry like this, where it's an always on culture, 24 by 7, and fire drill after fire drill, deadlines to meet, and all these things, it's just go, 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 and highly reactive. There's not a lot of focus and thought process on we should probably just pause and reflect on things right now,
Mhm.
right? That's not how it happens. So being able to give that ability just to ask a question and have people reflect starts to open up a lot of awareness and perspective that they otherwise don't get.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about the always on culture. That's something that I've thought about a lot, and something really at FR Secure I try to make sure doesn't happen. I force people to take PTO. And when they're on PTO, if I see them sending emails or sending Teams messages and stuff like that, I'm going to respond and say, "Hey, put it away." And if you don't, I'm calling Jeff, our admin, and I'm having him shut your accounts down until you get back home. You're taking a vacation because I want you to have that time to recover and reflect and be centered and grounded again. And I think so many organizations lose sight of that and track of that. And that's something that, I've experienced. I can remember a story where I had an uncle pass away. And at this time, I was leading the instant response team for a Fortune 500 company. And a client was, or one of our clients were waiting on a report. And my boss calls me. He's like, "Hey, sorry about your uncle, but before you take off, make sure you get that report buttoned up and send it over to me." And to me, that was really the breaking point where I said, you know what, this isn't the life for me anymore. And on top of that, it was just as you described, Steve, where, I was managing a global team. And every night of the week, I was taking calls at 2 or 3 in the morning. And so I could never get more than 3 hours of sleep at a time. It was very disruptive. And I was constantly stressed. Even after I finished those calls and I try to go back to sleep, your mind's still running. So maybe you get a little bit, but you're never actually healthy. What I learned is I wasn't thinking clear. I wasn't effective anymore. And it made me grow very, very cynical for the position, like you were talking about. And so, what do you recommend for companies? Like, what is, just a standard practice or even just the number one thing you would say, like to make sure you are operating an environment that values their personal time as well as the time with the organization?
So there's a lot behind that, but the fact that you mentioned the word values, so that is one of the underlying components of all this. I'll
Mhm.
step back before getting into the values and just mention from the impact on our mindset and our ability to make effective decisions. There is a lot of scientifically backed, evidence-based research that shows the impact on your ability to make effective decisions when you've been working for a certain amount of hours or without that effective amount of sleep, right?
Mhm.
We talk a lot in IT and cybersecurity about IT or technical debt. On our side at Green Shoe, we talk about sleep debt. So
Mhm.
if you're not getting effective, consistent sleep, that's going to be basically building up into debt that's impacting your ability to show up the way that you want to lead effectively, to influence, to communicate effectively, to be patient, to be composed, all the things that we need as effective leaders or cybersecurity professionals. So that's one thing.
Mhm.
The values piece, I think, is a major aspect of effectively leading, but also understanding who you are and what you stand for as an individual, as a team, as an organization. And so if you don't understand the values, and I'm talking about the 3 to 5 that really drive the words, thoughts, and actions that you have, then you're not going to know if you're living in alignment with those things or if you're out of congruency. When we're out of congruency, there's a lot of friction that we're experiencing. And so those types of things, again, add up and compound. So we do a lot of work around understanding our individual values, being able to define who we are, what we stand for, and then also building that out to the team and to the organization. Because there's a lot of organizations that list their values on their corporate office walls, on their annual report, their websites, but they don't do very much to live in alignment with those things. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mel, I feel like you've been kind of quiet over there. I gotta put you on the spot, see if you got a question or a thought for Steve here.
It's just interesting that you say that. And I think, being from sort of the other side of sitting in the sales organization, piece of our organization, um, but a lot of those things hit home, like the work-life balance, and even when your culture is very much embedded in taking care of yourself, and even when you have a leader who understands and recognizes, that we all need some help sometimes with keeping that balance, it's really hard to turn it off. And I think in a sale, from the sales perspective, even when we're on vacation, I feel like I have that mentality of, well, if I don't pick up, my competitor will. And when we travel for work, it's like you're on sometimes 14, 15, 16 hours at a time.
Hmm.
And it's very taxing. And I don't think people realize that. And then when you go back to your hotel room, you've got to go answer those 20 emails you might have missed throughout the day, too. So a lot of it, while it may not specifically apply because the work is different, I feel a lot of that and I understand. And I think it's from the culture piece, it's both sides, and everybody's got to kind of work together to help support it. And when you recognize it in your teammates, it's being that good supporter and teammate, because it's not all on senior leadership to provide that type of support, care, feedback. And if they are, though, if they're starting that up at the top, then it tends to spread through the rest of the org, and you do see that. So I just,
Hmm.
it was very much in my head listening to you guys have that chat.
Well, and then a couple of things you said I think are really important uh, to hit on too. The concept of a work-life balance. So, have either of you heard of Brene Brown?
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Right. So Brene Brown's a social worker by trade, and she researches shame and vulnerability. I like a lot of her stuff. One of the things she mentioned was about this aspect of relationships and the idea of a marriage being a 50-50 partnership or relationship. She's like, that's complete BS. Like, there is no, it's not 50-50. And especially when you think about it from an energy standpoint, she's like, we're all running and doing our own things and trying to be in a relationship while also doing our own individual things. She's like, so if I've been away for a week for work stuff and I come back home, or the husband's been working, he comes back home, they've set up some processes to be able to say, okay, where are you at in your energy level right now? If
Mhm.
we're at both 80% or above, everything's awesome. We can both handle things and support each other. But that's typically not the case, especially when you're working a full work week or whatever it is going on. So when they come home, they do that energy check in. If she's at 80% and he's at 40, then the idea is like, okay, what do you need to rest and recharge a bit to get back up to 50 or 60, right? I'll take the dinner, I'll take the kids, whatever it is, I can help out in this moment. But if they're both at 20%, they've made a essentially prepared and discussed up front what do we need? Because one, what do we like when we're both at 20%? We're not patient and compassionate and caring and easygoing. We're a lot more short-tempered, short-fused, all that stuff. So then we need to be more focused and leaning into being patient and compassionate during that and just do what needs to be done so we can go to bed or whatever it is, right? That also for us is very common and very much how we approach the workplace environments of like, we're in a high pressure, high demand environment. That doesn't mean we just like are, what's the word I'm going for? I was going to say hippy dippy, but kumbaya and just taking
Yeah,
our
sure.
times and not focused on getting stuff done. Like high performers realize that there's a lot to be done, but you can't perform at your best if you're not recovering and recharging.
Hmm.
So part of what we focus on is like, how do you actually structure your days? That way you're doing what we call micro recoveries and building in things so that way you can transition from meeting to meeting, not carry the stuff in that prior meeting into the current meeting so you can be present and focused. but also like knowing a variety of components of like, if you've been sitting at your desk for 3 hours straight, that's not great for your mindset.
Mhm.
Like go 45 minutes, stand up, go for a bio break, get some water, get a nutritious snack. But we need to be able to incorporate these micro recoveries as a means
Yeah.
of managing our energy more effectively.
You know, we've implemented some things at FR Secure. It's kind of right on what you're talking about. So I want to go back and just share when I first started here, our core values, and we always say the core values aren't just something on the wall. Look at these every month. I talk about them actively. I try to reflect with the team on here's how we're executing these core values regularly. And one of those core values was we have work-life balance. And so we thought about that, and I realized I can't influence your personal life balance. I can only influence your work balance, right? So I changed that core value to we prioritize well-being. And as part of we prioritize well-being, we've started initiating things to promote positive mental and physical health for our employees. One thing we've done is we do every month mental health bingo card. And the mental health bingo card is, it's healthy things like reach out to a friend you miss, call a family member, take a 15-minute walk, have a healthy meal, take a 30-minute break today to read a book, things like that, things that are kind of, we're incentivizing them to go through these recovery methods. And then at the end of the day, if you complete your bingo card, like we give you a $50 Amazon gift card or a gift card of your choice, And so we have a lot of people who actually do the things. And so I thought it was a clever way for us to be like, I really do care about my people, their well-being. I've been through burnout, and as a person in position of power here, one thing that I really want to do is maintain a positive culture and support all of our employees, every single one of them, physically and mentally the best way that I can. I'm thinking about Mel, like, this study is focused on CISOs, but when, I was reading through some of your stuff, Steve, it's like, I think about my conversation with the sales teams. It's exactly that. I was just putting together, I have a quarterly meeting with the team on Monday. And so I was putting together my speech to kick things off. And it was like, do you realize how many times, you guys, from a sales perspective, Mel, you just kind of get your teeth kicked in day after day after day. And what do? You just strap up the boots and you go do it again. You pick up the phone over and over and over, no matter how many times you've been told no. And that's so mentally taxing, especially long term, that you have to find these ways to keep yourself positive, energized, and really centered.
I mean, it's really why I never went to Hollywood, Oscar. I just didn't think I could handle the rejection of being an actress. And now here I am. But
So
it's true. It
I
is
guess a
so
question for both you guys here. This is all great stuff, but where does the true accountability sit? Is it the individual? Is it the organization? Is it the industry? Or is it a combination of everything? And what can we do to positively influence that as leaders in our positions?
Since you posed that to both of us, Mel, do you want to go first?
I feel like my answer might be a little different, but I would say it's probably a combination. I mean, you gotta start somewhere in how we are changing things and making it more okay to have those conversations and more normal so that people aren't afraid to put their hand up and talk about when they are overburdened or when they do need that break. Something we talk about a lot actually in this networking group that I'm a part of, the Alliance of Channel Women, and especially as women, we feel like we have to work a little bit harder and we have to kind of show up a little bit differently. And so we're really less likely to go, wait a minute, I can't do this. And I think it's a combination of leadership, industry, but the individuals. I think when people like the three of us are doing what we can to help make it okay for those around us and to encourage people to and for ourselves, which I'm really bad at, speak up when we need the pause or we need the support or we feel drained, overwhelmed, etc. I think that will start to help make the shift in a different way.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think there's a lot
absolutely
of good
agree, man.
points in that, and I'm sorry to talk over there, Oscar. Um, I completely agree with the need to be able to have an environment that allows people to speak up, because that is a big aspect that is lacking in the industry. Not only my opinion, but the research backing it up of
Mhm.
this aspect. When we feel overly distressed or burnt out, there's an aspect where most of us, a lot of people, will self-isolate, opposed to reaching out and being able to say, I've taken on too much, or I'm struggling, or whatever it is. Because the other part of this is that from a leadership standpoint, we very much buy into a couple different leadership styles that we morph into transformational leadership. There's a lot of similarity to servant leadership. And the idea is, as a leader, you need to be modeling the behavior that you're wanting your teams to be following. That's for one. So, Oscar, when you're saying like team member goes off for vacation, you want them not checking their emails and feeling like they can disconnect. Modeling that behavior yourself is really important. But I think also, just to answer the question, one, we can all benefit from learning because there is such a lack of effective training, if any training exists, on what's been deemed as the soft skills. We
Mm.
refer to them as performance skills for what we do because there's nothing soft about them. But the idea is there's so much missing in regards to effective leadership training, communication, stress management, et cetera. We could all benefit from those to be better leaders in our own lives because we also look at that as like everyone needs to be an effective leader. You don't just need a title to be a leader. So that being one, and then secondly, the research over the past 30 years or so of stress and burnout in workplace environments basically, not basically, it shows and validates the fact that the bigger issue is the way that the organization is designed and the systems in place. So, Oscar, you mentioned incentivizing folks to use the well-being bingo cards. That incentivizing actually drives the behavior you're looking for, right? Hopefully. But
Oh,
the,
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
challenge in the industry is that cybersecurity's essentially been a very reactive response to computer technology being deployed into corporate environments. So at some point they realized that those systems could be hacked. So then they didn't have any cybersecurity profession. They just had the IT people that were maintaining and installing the system. So they're like, Oscar, you know about this stuff, secure it. Make sure it doesn't get hacked or have any issues, right? And then
That's
that
how I
becomes the whole
became the
thing,
security person, was exactly that.
right?
Yeah.
So then it's really understanding like what drives those areas of friction within the organization and how do you address them? Because you don't need huge lift and shifts and expensive consulting companies to come in and show you how to do this stuff. Like looking at our state of stress report, the research over the past 30 years has shown six different areas of job fit or what they call work life.
Mm.
That includes things like workload. Do you have the skills and the resources to manage the workload that is demanded of you? And if you don't, if you're overwhelmed by it and you've got too much workload, you're going to be hitting distress and burnout sooner than not.
Mhm.
So it's those areas that we tend to assess and then identify, okay, here's the areas that we would basically need to be addressed. And then how do we do that in a collaborative manner so that everyone has a voice involved in terms of like, what are the issues? How is this happening? How do we adjust it to eliminate or alleviate some of those issues?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Something that I always try to do, and I hope I teach this to all my other leaders as they're coming up, is when I have one-on-one meetings with individuals, it always starts with a how are you doing? And it's not a hey, how are you? It's not tell me what's going on. Like, how are you feeling about work? How's your personal life? And a lot of times these meetings, maybe our entire hour, we spend 45, 50 minutes of that meeting talking about how you're doing right now. And then, we get 10 minutes for the business stuff. But I see that influence on people, right? Just being there, just to be an ear. I don't have to solve your problem. I just have to be an ear for you, to listen to you. And if I can't help, I will help, but sometimes I can't, and that's okay. And I see how much that means to people to just have a safe space where they feel supported, they feel cared about. And I always say that happy people are the best workers, right? And that's the business case for this. If you have someone that, if you can cultivate an environment where your people feel like they're supported, they feel trusted, they feel loved, and they feel like we are doing as much as we can to, promote that balance, they become extremely happy and extremely motivated individuals who do really good work. They interface with the clients really well. They're happy to show up for their job every single day. So I think all this work you're doing is so good, Steve. And there's such a huge, huge business case for everybody who's going to listen to this on why you should care about the well-being and the health of your employees.
Yeah, that's such a great way to engage with your team members. Because you hit on some important points. One, the not just how's the work going, what are you proud of, where you're struggling type thing, but also the personal life aspect, because there's something going on coming out of COVID and specifically the lockdowns, like everybody was impacted by the lockdowns.
Hmm.
And I'm starting to see this aspect where I don't know if it's coming out of the shock of all that. It's kind of like a trauma response because it was traumatic for most
Hmm.
everybody. But there's something where we have lost that community and connection for a lot of folks, and especially in the workplace environments, this fear over even using the word love.
Hmm.
Like, that's a big deal. Like, one of the primary human needs that we all have is to feel like we're cared for or loved, right? If you want to put in respected, whatever it is, but that idea that somebody, you don't need to like me in order to care about me,
Hmm.
right? But if I feel like you're genuinely caring about me and have my best interest in mind, I'm going to work harder for you than I would for somebody else that doesn't,
Hmm.
right? And then one of the other things, just to give you a little nugget and anybody else watching this, one of the easiest ways to do a check-in with your team, and it doesn't have to be just for a one-on-one, the easiest check-in that we promote is on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, where's your energy at right now?
Hmm.
Simple question, right? And
Yeah.
gets them to be able to share their voice and express where they're at on that. So if somebody says hypothetically a 3, the next question is, what's draining your energy the most right now,
Hmm.
right? Once they reveal that, if it's something that you have, and you can then follow up by saying, okay, what can I do as your peer or team leader or whatever it is? What can I do to help move you from a 3 to a 4 or alleviate some of that energy drain? The challenge in that is if they share with you something that's reasonable and appropriate, you need to do it. And if you
Hmm.
don't follow through and do it, you start to lose trust. But then, two, you just open up a wound and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. I love that. It's such a simple
Mhm.
question, and you get so much from a one-word answer right there. And I will take that away, Steve. That's something I will certainly incorporate into my meetings with my folks. I think that's just excellent. All right, you guys want to do a lightning round real quick?
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna go back and forth. Mel, you get one, then Steve, you get one. Okay. All right, Mel, we're gonna start with you. Burnout is a personal failure of resilience. Truth or false?
That feels like a myth.
Myth all day. Yeah. And if anybody disagrees, we can raise their hand and have a conversation about it. All right, Steve. Cybersecurity is uniquely stressful compared to other executive roles.
So I have a couple of things. One, there's this, again, stress gets thrown around a lot. Every human being needs stress.
Hmm.
That's how we get activated to do any task or perform at anything. So understanding stress is not necessarily bad. It's how we respond to it. So that being one, secondly, repeat the question for me because I just talked my way out of it.
Cybersecurity is uniquely stressful compared to other executive roles.
So I will say, based on what I sold cybersecurity software for 20 years, so I know the industry pretty intimately from that, and then the research we do and supporting the industry, there is cybersecurity is unique in the business environments because of that always on mentality, all of the responsibilities that cybersecurity and the stakeholders that you touch. So there is a unique environment in that aspect than the other business units. I don't want to diminish the stress levels that the other business units are under because there is plenty of stress to go around. It is that aspect where it is a very unique environment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And this isn't, like you said, to diminish. There are other roles that are stressful. There are plenty that are stressful uniquely in their own way as well. I think we just have to access that the cybersecurity executive roles are unique in their own way. And you're right. It's like I can remember those calls I talk about coming in at 3 in the morning every night, and it's my immediate response is, "Oh no, what's wrong?" And
Yeah.
I would say not every time, but 75% of the time, it was because something was wrong. And yeah, it's pretty unique. All right, Mel, you can recover from burnout without changing your workload.
How come I don't get the easy ones, Oscar? I'm not the one that did all this research to be in this seat. But I'm gonna say, based on some of the things that Steve has shared previously, that might be true because there are other things that you can do in your life. And burnout isn't necessarily about feeling just overloaded at work. So I
Hmm.
don't know. I think
Yeah,
that might be
I
true.
completely agree. I think that's the truth. And Steve, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too. For me, it's talking about those things like you were giving the Brene Brown example of like that relationship at home. And I'm lucky enough, like my wife gets me, she's very supportive. Like I just got back from we were doing a VTO session, our quarterly planning. I come back toasted and burnt out. Like for that day. When I get home, she's like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "I'm wore out." Like, cool, let's have a good dinner, let's relax, let's watch a baseball game. And it's
Mm.
so meaningful to me. And I wake up the next day feeling recharged, ready to go, and motivated again. It's not my workload that is going to cause, that's not going to change. It's the things I can do outside of work that can help me be happy and productive.
But also, good job, Erica. Like, I love
Erica
that.
wins. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a big deal. Having the support at home is a big deal. I would say it depends. So if your workload's out of whack,
Hmm.
one, you could not have enough workload and get burnt out because you are not being utilized.
Yeah.
But workload alone may not be the significant or just the sole thing that is leading to burnout. Like you could have an overwhelming amount of work, you could have an underwhelming amount, but there's other factors that play into it. Typically, it's more than just the workload.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, we'll do one more here, Steve, for you. AI will reduce CISO stress by automating decision making.
Oh, the AI topic.
Had to throw it in, right?
No,
Got to tag that, get
it's
some listens
legitimate.
here.
So we're incorporating AI into our research this year. So we're just getting ready to recruit CISOs and start the process of doing the research over the next couple of months. AI is definitely a part of the whole thing, and it's caused another disruption and more uncertainty and chaos in the environments that are already uncertain and chaos or
Oh yeah.
chaotic. Um, there's also a big thing, and so I mentioned Brene Brown. So there's a lot of research on shame in the workplace environments. And shame is something we all experience and rarely talk about. Um, since most of my research, the research we did last year, AI had not exploded onto the scene like it has over the past 12 months or so. And so we're going to incorporate that. But one of the things I find really interesting is one component of shame or that generates shame is the fear of irrelevance.
Hmm.
Mm.
So how many people have been let go because AI has supposedly replaced them as an effective employee? How many people feel concerned over their relevancy in their roles because of AI, right? So I'm sure there's CISOs out there that are concerned that AI could possibly do their job at some point better than they can.
Hmm.
I saw a Google executive do speaking somewhere a year ago, and he was talking about the fact like all these CEOs are eliminating positions because they see AI being able to do those jobs. What makes those executives think that their job is safe,
Hmm.
right? Like an AI with an agentic AI that has the neural capacities to evolve and think in their capacities and those types of things. Like that AI platform or agent couldn't do an executive job better than the executive. Like
Hmm.
that's a complete fallacy or delusional to think that couldn't be the case. So I think the fear of irrelevance and the changing capacity adds a completely different component because now everybody's looking at the entry level positions in cybersecurity can be done now by AI. So where does that leave college grads? Their degrees becoming quote unquote irrelevant. How do we skill up and adjust to this new environment that we're dealing with? Because we don't even know the full impact and like usability and all these things of AI. But then also the aspect of like people's response to shame is survival instinct mode.
Hmm.
There is a burnout component related to shame. So there is so much shame that's utilized in our environments for short-term productivity. Like, why didn't you spot that thing? Like
Yeah.
John over there did. You didn't do that? What's wrong with you? You
Hmm.
know? Or like,
Mm.
why aren't you able to handle this workload?
Yeah.
Stacy
Yeah.
is, like
Yeah.
what's wrong
Right.
with you? Like all these different things. And on the vendor sales side, I've worked for plenty of companies that use shame as a short-term motivator, and it just creates more dissent and negative
Hmm.
response and cynicism opposed to like engagement and wanting to work for the company. So I think that's a big aspect with AI that most people are not talking about.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. This one is tough for me. It's like I think there are opportunities where we could reduce some stress level, but at the same time, we're introducing new stress. And I think that's exactly what you're explaining. And even the stresses that you've had an example for here, like outside of that too, like the risk. You are implementing new risk into your organization by adopting these tools. And we're already starting to see some of that repercussion. I think we're going to continue to see more and more. I've been calling it this blind adoption of AI. And a lot of executives feel the need to blindly adopt just because their peers and other businesses are doing the same thing. And they feel like if they're not, they're behind. And so we're seeing this just kind of mindless integrate, integrate, integrate. And we're giving all of our data to these endpoints and these models without thinking about what the potential ramifications are going to be. So I think that while they can identify opportunities in their day-to-day workload to reduce, work demand, I believe we're introducing new risk, which is also going to impact their stress levels as we move forward here and start to learn more about that. The other thing I think about too is accountability, right? AI, if your AI is your CISO now, who's accountable? And then also like we know that the boundaries of AI like doesn't necessarily always respect ethics and morals. And so if you add those two things, somebody with questionable ethics and questionable morals, and you have no human person that's truly accountable, that's a whole new can of worms. And I think we could probably talk about AI and
That's a whole nother
ethics.
episode,
Yeah.
Oscar.
I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, I would also add in the idea of like freeing up some workload utilizing AI.
Hmm.
Um, at one point over the past, let's say 12 months, I know there was discussion about I don't know if it was I think it was the AI platforms originally were like, oh, this is going to free up so much more time. So then we're going
Hmm.
to have time to paint and do yoga and do all this other stuff that we,
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And being the former salesperson, like we have to be on guard for sales pitches because there's a hidden agenda behind a lot of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea that being in a capitalist society, that any free time that's opened up, capitalism will fill that free time up. We
Every
don't
time.
just be like, we're not just going to look at that and be like, oh, that's your time. We're productive enough, right?
Yeah.
It's like, nope, there's more opportunity to produce. Let's
Hmm.
go. So
Absolutely.
then that makes the micro recoveries and the paying attention to your energy levels and all these things more important because we're also really challenged in creating boundaries for ourselves in terms of feeling like we can even push back and say no.
Hmm. Absolutely. This has been a fantastic conversation, Steve. It's great getting to know you. Honestly, I'm not just saying this because I ran the show instead of Michael today, Mel, but I think this is our best episode yet.
Awesome. Very
And
nice of you to say.
would love to have you back on again in the future and to continue this conversation. And really, I'm anxious to see what your studies show this year as you're taking AI into account. And so we'll keep an eye out for that. But thanks for joining us, Steve. Appreciate you. And thanks for joining us as always, Mel. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you.